Good morning, my name is Justin and I'm an alcoholic. And it's a pleasure to be here. I admire your enthusiasm, and this is I like a welcome like that, and thank you for it. You have a wonderful thing here. Looking out at this group this morning, it's striking that, my God, we clean up. We don't look like alcoholics. It's a wonderful thing. I happen to be a Catholic priest because God has a sense of humor, and a Benedictine monk. So guess what my group calls me? The drunk monk. I don't know about the genetic stuff in this disease. There's probably something to it. I come from a Polish Catholic family that landed in this country and went to the first piece of solid land that they could get on, and that was in Jersey City, New Jersey. And so I grew up looking at the backside of Miss Liberty in the Hudson Bay. And my relatives drink. They do that well. And I suppose that I got some of this from them, but I always used to tell myself, I'm not going to be like that when I grow up. I'm going to be different. I had feelings of real revulsion, and I found them obnoxious, and all this stuff. And I said, I'm not going to be like that. And it's quite interesting how this disease doesn't care what you tell it. I've never met anybody. You ask a little kid, what are you going to be when you grow up? They never say, I'm going to be a drunk, or I'm going to be a junkie. They don't say those things. And so, I had great expectations, but I was to end up like my relatives. I did not get into a regular pattern of drinking until I was 19. I would drink whenever I could. I'm one of those people that has a little difficulty with some of the lines in the big book. You know, that vision of the past that we just talked about the happy times, and the other one about the invisible line. I don't remember crossing the invisible line. I always drank for what that stuff was going to do, and that blast inside, and I never remember social drinking. I was neither social or sociable. There's nothing social about my drinking. I drink like a pig. You may have had that experience where you go to a wedding after you're in this program for a while. I'm embarrassed. After some years, I'm embarrassed because I look around the room and you might find one occasionally, but everybody's not drinking like a pig, and I thought they were. I thought that's what people did when they got around this stuff. And I drink like a pig. You let me loose, and I drink uncontrollably. I got into a regular pattern of drinking when I joined a monastery. I was 19 years old, and I found out that these monks, well, we have a piece of property. We have 560 acres. That may not sound like much, but that's a piece of New Jersey. And on that property, they had an apple orchard. 300 apple trees. And this time of year, we would be out there picking those apples. Now, you can't eat all those apples from 300 apple trees. They had a press. And every monastery in God's world is cooking something. In the Rule for Monks, St. Benedict writes some interesting things. I belong to a religious order that was established in the 6th century, and he writes in his rule that wine is not a drink for monks. So I said, well, that's why I drink scotch or beer. And then he goes on and says, but the monks of our day can't be convinced of this. The 6th century. So he says, well, let it be measured. Let them have a hemina of wine a day. Maybe you know what a hemina is. If you're in this program, you know what a hemina is. It's those other people that don't know what a hemina is. I don't know. Some people call them earth people. I call them walking around people. And for me, it's a hemina. And I have a divine right to have that hemina belonging to this outfit. And for the earth people, it might be a hemina. They're all cooking something. The monks invented beer. That little thing on the Munich coat of arms is a monk. They invented champagne. New Jersey is not a champagne region. We had apples. So they would press these apples, and they would put the apple juice in 50-gallon oak casks, and they'd turn them on their side and put a little plug in it and a tube and a glass of water, and it would start to bubble and bubble. And someone knew what to do. They'd come by after 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and they'd check that out. And they knew whether to put brown sugar in it or raisins in it, or it would bubble again. They called that racking it over. And then it would come out on Sunday night and Tuesday night and Thursday night. And there was my spiritual life. Sunday night and Tuesday night and Thursday night. I never drank it for its bouquet. I never drank anything for its bouquet or clarity or anything else. I drank it because it did it. It looked, tasted, and smelled like gasoline. I didn't care. I'd put sugar in it. I'd put honey in it. I'd gag on that first glass, getting it down. It did the trick. And then I was off. That's when I started the performing arts of alcoholism. You can't find a place anywhere where you're going to keep a drunk away from booze. Now that could be in a monastery. That I've subsequently worked as a chaplain in the jail for a number of years, but you can find stuff anywhere. And you can't keep an alcoholic from booze. I found out that there's always more, and I always got my hands on it. Whether I could get more of this hard cider or not, I found an answer to that problem. They have a room in the monastery, they call it the sacristy, where they keep the altar wine. We used Christian Brothers. Kept it in gallon jugs. Nobody kept score. I found out how to get in there. They kept the keys, because of people like me, locked in the wall safe. I get the combination to the wall safe. I get the keys out of the wall safe. I go in the closet. I lock myself in the closet. Somewhere in here I become a closet drinker. I unlock the cabinet, blast out of these gallon jugs of Christian Brothers. Nobody's keeping score. It does the trick. I'm off. I've begun my career, this pattern of drinking. Then, slowly, inevitably, I developed the talent that you give me 5 minutes in a monk's room and I'll have his booze or his money. Some people, I don't know what they're doing. They could have a bottle on their dresser for a year. I don't know, maybe you understand that. I don't understand that. Are they talking to it? Is it talking to them? I'd sneak in their room, drink their own booze in their own room. As a result, they'd have to hide it from me. Now, slowly this career gets underway. I think that there's a very, very powerful thing that happens to us. I've heard it alluded to in the fine speakers we've heard on this weekend. All of a sudden, in the people that surround me in my alcoholism, I detect what I call the look. Now, in some people, this look says they know what I don't know, and it's bad. Now, this happened very, very slowly. What did I know blackouts? I thought I was forgetting, and all of a sudden it begins to happen. They have this look on their face, they know. And I know that they know, and I don't know, and it's bad. Sometimes that look is horror. Sometimes that look is fear. Sometimes that look is disgust and revulsion. Sometimes that look is anger, but it's there. And I came to learn that look kind of goes right through you. And that's the price. I figured, well, that's the price of drinking. And what I began to do in the beginning of my blackouts was hang around long enough with the people that I was drinking with, and I would be able to tell what really happened, pathological. So I would listen. And people would talk about the night before, people I would be drinking with or people who were there, and they would give little clues about what really went on. And I would tell myself, oh, I really wasn't that bad because, see, I remember, and I'm imagining the scene. And this is part of the pathological process of our disease. We're telling ourselves lies. I told myself lies, and I chose to believe them. That's what I really remembered. And in the meantime, they're giving me the clues of what's going on. I understand that this thing is threefold. I'm one of those people that the physical signs of alcoholism, give me a break. That's not going to interest me in any kind of change or any kind of physical. Wow. Psychological, I freely admit today that I'm crazy. I came in this program, looked at that second step, and had this attitude. What are they trying to tell me? I have no problem with that now. Crazy. They have fancy names for my illness. They call it chemical psychosis. You give somebody enough stuff, and they go crazy. That's me. And I got it. I've looked at a list of all the things that can go wrong with people psychologically, and I have to tell you that I've got them all. Peggy was talking about humilifying, or that's got to be one, humilifying experience, to read a list of things that go wrong with people. I've got every one of them. I know what it is to see things that aren't there, to hear things that aren't there, I know what it is to have uncontrollable phobias or fears or anxiety. It's how you go down the list. I have no problem identifying with that. You put booze in me and I have all those things. I'm as crazy as the people who are permanently locked up, but they have me out on the loose. Continually, I had trouble with police and vehicles. Very early on in my drinking, I was 19 or 20 years old. I was too young to drink in New Jersey. I'm going to visit someone who's dying in the hospital, one of the monks. One of the other guys wants me to take him up there and say goodbye to this dear old man who's breathing his last. Except I'm in and out of a blackout. You put an ounce of alcohol in me and I don't care if you're living or dying. All I care about is if you got money or if you got booze. And off we go to the hospital. I mean, this was in the days when they had oxygen tents, and we're looking at him, and I don't know where he is, this poor soul. The only thing on my mind is, this guy's dead. Let's get out of here and get something to drink. We wear the monastic habit in our monastery, black robes with a hood. I'm all dressed up in this thing in the hospital. In and out of a black, what do I care? I'm driving this other guy. So we leave. I'm looking for more booze. I don't see the brick wall in front of the hospital that has its name on it and lights and bushes and all that. I hit that thing. The back seat of the car hit me in the head. I hit the steering wheel. The guy next to me gets out. He's in the bushes, though, and he can't breathe. Now I begin to get nervous. I thought I heard him. But then I see it's blood all over the place, and I'm not going back to that hospital. I hit their wall. There's no way I'm showing up and telling them I just smashed into your wall out front. We knew a dentist that lived 3 houses down the road. So we put up the hoods. This is before they made that movie with those little things, and we're holding each other up on the highway, and we walk down and we ring this man's doorbell, and thank God he knew what we were. And he let us in, and he begins to work on my face down in his treatment room. Now the next thing, the police are there. This vehicle is blocking traffic on the highway in front of the hospital, and they don't see any sign of who's driving it or what it's doing there. And so they go look. I don't know how they found me. They found me, and they want to see me in the police station after I get through with this dentist. Like any good alcoholic, I don't have my driver's license with me. Someone has to go find that in my alcoholic hovel. They have to discover where my license is so that I can present this to the police officers. And I finally get to the police station, and when I'm drunk, I talk through my teeth so you can't smell anything. Now, there's another version of the look. They're looking at me, I'm looking at them, I'm trying to talk through my teeth, and they're wondering, what do you do with a drunk monk? Finally, my license comes. There's no record of that. Absolutely no report, no record. That never happened. They send me home. And I learned a great lesson of my disease, that people are going to cover up and enable me to do what I want as long as I manipulate and scheme and keep up a good front. They're going to let me get away with whatever happens. So someone comes in my room with a bottle of vodka, feeling sorry for me, hearing about this big accident, and I said, that's it. That's how you do it. That's how you get away with this. I continued in the monastery, going to school. Oh, geez, they're teaching me things like metaphysics. That's dangerous for alcoholics, and all kinds of philosophy. And then I go off and study theology. I found out that my disease of alcoholism, I don't know about you, but I think I see this. I think I hear this in what people say from the podium. I know it's true about me. Whatever you regard as most important in your life, that's what this disease is going to attack. I don't know. I've heard people talk about their jobs, their wives, their families. That's what this disease is going to attack. Whatever we regard as most important in our lives, that's where it's somehow going to get in there, and that's what it's going to do its job. I'm in the seminary. I don't know what I believe in. I've heard it said since I've come in this program that whatever you spend most of your time thinking about, that's God for you. For me, it was booze. Alcohol was God. That's what I spent most of my time thinking about. That became the center and the common denominator of everything I did in my life. Everybody I knew, everywhere I went, everything I did was booze, somehow connected with booze. I'm in the seminary. I don't believe in God. I believe in alcohol. Now, this disease is beginning to do its real psychological wonders on me. I'm arguing with the other seminarians that Jesus is an atheist. There's a very special version of the look that they have on their faces. it's like, so what are you doing here, you know? And the basis of my relationship with them is if they have money or they have booze, we're friends. And I'm using the New Testament as my proof. That's not what that book is about. You know, it's a wonder I come in I don't know anything about things I'm supposed to. I go on my way. In our monastery back in New Jersey, we support ourselves, and we do that by working. That's part of our tradition as monks, and we sell Christmas trees. That's the way we do it, and I'm very happy about that, because some monasteries sell jelly, or fruitcakes, candy. Who wants to be known as the fruitcake monks, or the jelly monks, or the candy monks? I mean, somehow the trees are respectable, and it's hard work, it's outdoors. But you know, it's cold in December back home, and we'd have to be out there at 9 o'clock in the morning selling these Christmas trees, and that meant Johnny Walker Red was going to be out there with us at 9 o'clock in the morning. And we're drinking down Johnny Walker Red. I send out for a case of beer, Budweiser, for lunch. This is by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm giving away Christmas trees to all. Merry Christmas! And the lights go out. The lights always go out. I wake up the next morning and say, my God, I must have been good and gone to bed early last night. But then, you know, there's the law in people's faces. And it's something that's, you know, sober, it's very difficult to handle that. It's unnerving. But drunk, it's like, who cares? And I pieced together the story of how I was knocking down fences. And I'm one of those people that don't stay put when they put you to bed, and I get up and cause trouble. I look for fights. It's crazy. And the other guys have the look in the morning. Now they continued to enable me to drink. They would say things like, well, he drinks like that because he's Polish. Or when he grows up, he'll change. Well, there was going to be no change. Then the thing began to happen. I couldn't account for time. The guy next door to me, he has his own version of the look, and he's looking for his bottle of this stuff from Germany called Schweichelberger Geist. And on the bottle it says, you can either rub this on your arm or you could drink it, but the pain will go away. He knows where his bottle of Schweichelberger Geist went, and I don't. And he wants me to tell him where it is, and what do I know? I drank the thing. Slowly, inevitably, it only gets worse. That's something I'm fascinated about this disease. It only gets worse. It begins to eat away more and more at whatever we regard valuable. I'm back and forth. I studied in Indiana, a big seminary in southern Indiana, big monastery. They used to serve their homemade wine at supper. I don't know. Indiana is not a wine-growing area either. You know, but I don't care what this stuff tastes like. They came around at supper, and we would be 6 of us at a table. There were 100 monks, a big room like this, and the glasses had to be lined up on the end of the table. And I'm always counting the number of people at the table or the number of glasses at the end. And if somebody doesn't have their glass down there, I'm persuading them to get it down there, because if they don't want it, I do. After the meal, I would walk around and drink the empties. You know, what do I care? See, people always leave a little bit with the, I don't know, there's always that black stuff floating in it or whatever, and so what? And you get another glass that way, and who cares what they think? Party time, I always came early, stayed late, always found where supplies were, and it kind of was devious all the time, on the sneak, because I had to make arrangements for drinking. But you can't find a place in God's earth where an alcoholic can't get something to drink if he wants it. Now, I've traveled a little bit since I've come in the program. I've been in some far-off places in Africa, places where you can't easily get to unless you're connected with the missionaries. And I'm visiting over there. This is after I'm in the program. And I find out that the monks over there are cooking stuff too. They're running banana juice, mango juice, any kind of juice they can squeeze through stills. Now, we had a still. We ran our hard cider through the still. It came out looking like water. They call that Jersey Lightning. But they're trying to run mango juice through their still, and they're telling me it doesn't work because it's too thick. It just doesn't work. And the boys are on the corner. The Africans, they're drinking bamboo wine. They take the juice out of the bamboo plant early in the morning. It's like fruit juice. By the middle of the day, it's got a kick in it. By the middle of the afternoon, it's goodbye. I'm walking through this village in the middle of the afternoon. The boys are on the corner with these bowls of this stuff. And I took, a look at them, and I knew what they had. And I said, no, thank you. Interesting to see that, but you can't find a place where an alcoholic can't get something to drink. Now, the reason why I talk about Africa, that was the solution in days gone by, when you have a troublesome clergyman in the Catholic Church that has connections with missions, you send them over there. I have to tell you, if they had done that to me, I would be swinging through the trees this day. Tarzan with a bowl of bamboo wine. Problem with us is the Catholic Church tends to treat its clergy too leniently to a fault. Of course that's changing, but the police did that years ago too. Christmas time I'm out cutting down the Christmas tree for the monastery after in and out of a blackout. I have one of the vehicles that's not supposed to go on the highway. We have these farm use things that we use on our property. You can always tell a drunk, but you can't tell them much. I got this thing on the highway. The next thing I know, the state police have me on the side of the road. Now, they're very interesting in New Jersey. They have all these straps and bullets and guns to intimidate you. And this man is intimidating me. He has me on the side of the road, and he's yelling in my face. He wants me to explain to him how he's supposed to know if this thing I'm driving is coming or going down the highway. And I'm trying to talk through my teeth, because that's what I do when I'm drunk. I have to get out all my papers and show this man, of course, all the papers. He's looking at all the papers. He sees where I'm from. What do you do with a drunk monk? You send him home. You see, the reason he stopped me was this thing had an extra headlight on the back. What do I know? I had it on. All he saw was a light. He didn't know whether to ditch his car or... Well, I got rid of him, cut the tree down anyway, and brought it back. We used to run a summer camp, too, for kids on our property. It was a nice kind of thing, and kids always have these stories in the summer about how there's a prowler or somebody around at night. Well, the drunk believes all that. Of course, that's an excuse to stay up all night looking for this guy. So I have this old Army Jeep we have in our property, and I'm running around. I have a few cases of beer in the middle, and I'm driving all night looking for the prowler. The beer runs out about 3:30 in the morning, and what happened was the car ran out of gas. I didn't know that. I thought it just stalled. I was on top of this hill on the far end of our property, and I said, well, there's nothing you can't do. I'm just going to jumpstart this thing, but I have to turn it around. Well, I'm trying to make a K-turn on top of this hill, and it goes off the cliff. And the trees swallowed it up. It was like, where did it go? The next morning, they're looking for this Jeep. The people at the monastery want to use it, and I'm convincing the guy that lives next door to me to get our bulldozer and to go up to this cliff with cables and to pull this thing up. Thank God they made those things indestructible. So we banged out the front end with a sledgehammer and brought it back. Everybody's wondering, what's the bulldozer doing going up to that end of the property? And I thought people forgot. You get a version of the look, but now they're beginning to remember and put together little incidents and little escapades of this drunk monk. They begin to remember that. They remember Christmas Eve. I drove into the swamp at Christmas Eve night because I was looking for booze, and on Christmas afternoon, it's just what the guys want to do, is get out our bucket loader with chains and pull this thing I'm driving out of the swamp. They begin to, just what they want to do, they begin to remember every time I would drive our pickup truck, I would pull it up to our loading dock, jump out, pop the clutch, the thing would jump forward, the headlights would break. Now that's funny until the guy who's changing them has to do that again and again and again, and he knows who's driving this thing. I thought I'm being spontaneous in life. I didn't know how predictable my behavior had become to the people that I lived with who were giving me the look. I go on my merry way. I kept making excuses. I kept studying. I kept blaming other people for all my problems. Never any kind of rest. I have to tell you, the spiritual stuff went out the window the day I picked up a drink in the monastery. Gone. Now, that's crazy, but living in a monastery, the purpose is to seek God, to search for God, and that's the last thing I'm interested in. I joined this group, I said to myself, because they drink. I says, I could have joined some outfit that didn't drink. And now it begins to get really crazy because life is nuts, the way I'm living it. We all have our method of figuring out how to stop the room from going around. Some people would fall on the floor. I used to put my foot on the floor and stare at the doorknob. The psychological stuff was getting out of control. I would wake up in the middle of the night thinking my mind was going to snap, and the next morning say, oh, what was that? That's over. And that's the price of drinking going on. I would sneak out. I would climb out the window, party time, and always look good on the surface. I've heard it described by a European. Now, they don't have too much success with dealing with alcoholics in European monasteries because they're not as acquainted with what we have in our country. But I've heard a superior in Europe describe the drunk as a ghost. Now you see him, now you don't. And when you see him, he looks very good. Functional, performing, looks like he can do anything. But then where did he go? Living in a big, or in an institution, disappearing, gone. Well, it began to happen. I began to disappear more and more. I found a place. I always would find places to drink. And one of my favorite holiday drinking spots was in New York City, a little place on 41st Street and 10th Avenue. If you ever go there, it's the backside of Port Authority. Amongst the fruit stands, you can find some of these little bars where some of the strangest people in the world hang out, but they all thought it was nice that he's coming down here to drink with us, and I never had to buy anything. I hated to drive drunk. I always preferred to drive in a blackout. I can't tell where the road is, where the lines are, none of that stuff. Trying this and this, putting my hands over my eyes to figure out where the real road is. Things are jumping out in the middle of the night, and I can never tell if the guy in front of me had his night lights on or his brake lights on. I'm always hitting the brake. People in the car are looking at me. I'm always trying to get them to drive. But they don't want to. They're too drunk. So I hate driving drunk. I always prefer to wake up at home the next day. And then there's 20 minutes of guilt and terror. I would go out, look under the car, look at the bumpers, and see if the blood or bodies or whatever are there, and pieces of other cars or whatever. And after 20 minutes of the horrors and the guilt, and looking in the newspaper to seeing who was killed on the highway last night, then it would be over. But I hated driving drunk. Well, slowly I began to hate myself. What began to be the single most important problem with my disease of alcoholism was shame. Now, human beings all have their collection of shame. You have things, I have things, we all have things naturally that we're ashamed about. They're completely irrational. Some of them are sick, some of them are not, but everybody's got their collection. You add alcohol to me, with my collection of shame, it becomes a monster. Now, it's only increased because of the profession and the what I'm doing. It becomes more and more of a monster. Guilt and shame become big barriers for me. Now, I know that drinking takes away those feelings of guilt and shame. I took the religious cure. Somebody out there is probably sitting and wondering, if you think that sobriety means you have to live like a monk or a priest or a nun or something, I'm here to tell you to try something else. That's not going to work. I took the religious cure. I thought, when I got ordained a priest, I thought, this is going to make the difference in my life. I'm now going to live happily ever after. My life is going to have meaning, purpose, direction. I'll have something to sink my teeth in. Except, I'm still drinking. The night before the ordination, I have to watch so I don't get too drunk, so I show up. The bishop's asking me during this service, are you all right? Are you going to make it through this? I thought I looked great. And that night, I'm insulting all the guests that had come to be there and join us for that day. So it didn't work. The next week was to be my first Mass in Jersey City, the big event. The only problem was the day before, this young couple asked me to perform their wedding. It seemed like a good idea at the time. I go to this wedding. The father of the bride and I decide that there's no bourbon at the reception. I don't know why. He said bourbon. It sounded great to me. We buy a couple of bottles of Maker's Mark, and the lights go out. I won the dancing contest in the blackout. The Roman collar comes off. I'm telling everybody I'm going to spend the night in Jersey City so I can be there bright and early for my first Mass the next day. I'm 50 miles away with the shakes and dying. And somebody comes by and takes me down to what was the emptiest day of my life, my first Mass. There in my parish church, all the relatives and friends are there. And I absolutely hate myself. I don't want to be there. I want to be cut off, isolated, alone. Now the shame of the disease had overwhelmed me. And this is more powerful than wetting the bed or wetting my pants or whatever. the shame of the disease. All of a sudden, I can't look at people and their relatives and friends, and it's overwhelming. And I want to be isolated, cut off. The shame is screaming, "Leave me alone." And I walk around with a hollow, empty smile. I get through it somehow, and we're great at acting. I get through it, and all I wanted to be was left alone. Now, after this, it was completely out of control, because then I'm drinking, it's binges, and there are 2 or 3 days, I don't know where I am. I'm filling out accident reports for I don't know if I'm having accidents or people are plotting against me, and all the joys of alcoholism come in now. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I'm one of those drunks that I don't know if it's night or day. You know, they invented the digital clock for us because it tells you 7 a.m., 7 p.m. I'm looking out the window. You can't tell from the news either. You put the news on, they have the same news in the morning and in the evening. I'm waking up on the floor in my room. I'm bouncing around. People are asking me what's going on in my room. They're bouncing around in convulsions, coming off drunks, shaking, and I'm suicidal and self-destructive, and I don't know what to do. I don't believe in God. I believe in alcohol. That's what I spent most of my time thinking about, was booze. Booze was God. Made me feel different, made me perform. Oh, I could talk it. All that was an idea you could leave in a book on a bookshelf. I didn't know what to do, and it was getting worse. Time and time again, I kept saying, if only this, and I'm blaming people, I'm blaming ideas, I'm blaming the church, I'm blaming everything. And I'm running out of excuses. I wanted to be put away. I thought I had to go to the funny farm where they send crazy people, and I began to make some exploration of that. Where do you go? What do you do? I didn't know what to do. What happened to me was I prayed somewhere in those last months of my alcoholism. In fact, I remember a week before I was confronted, I asked God for help. I didn't know who God was, what God was supposed to do. I think that was the prayer that came out of my guts, out of desperation. Everything else was, and I knew I had been beaten. I didn't know what it was. And I just asked for help. I'm more amazed today at how clear and direct help was to come than I was at that time. Within a week, there was an answer. The abbot of the monastery at the time had decided enough is enough. And he taps me on my shoulder at lunch one day and he says, "I want to see you in my office after you finish lunch." And I says, "Oh, thank God, this guy's recognized my genius. He's going to appoint me to some big responsible position now." He gets me in his office, and what he had done was set up, I don't know, they have different names for this. This was just as they were beginning to do those kinds of things, calling them an intervention, and they began to have policies and rules. An intervention is a situation where the people that know you get together and they say, "Come out with your hands up. We have you surrounded." And I walk in this guy's office. He says, "I've determined you've got a problem. Do you have a problem with alcohol?" All I can think of was that it took a week to get off the last drunk. It was a binge. I was shaking and jangling. I'm asking people what to do. And I say, yes. Now, this poor man had done all his homework and all his research from the perspective that you can always tell the drunk, but you can't tell him much. It's going to be trouble. He's going to say no. And I said yes. So it was like, now who's confused? He don't know what to do if the drunk says yes. He only knows what to do when the drunk says no. Well, he threatens me with ecclesiastical action. They're very, very reluctant to do this in the Catholic Church. But he threatens me with that. They're going to get rid of me. And he sends me off to see somebody in the program, an old priest. This guy had been in the Second World War. He was a Navy chaplain. He had been in 17 battles in the Pacific. I find his house. I get there, and he begins to 12-step me. I don't know what he's doing. I'm sitting there. I'm confused. And he's telling me how in the Navy they drank torpedo juice. I never drank torpedo juice. I drank this stuff we made out of apples. You could probably run torpedoes or missiles or something on it. But I never drank torpedo juice. He says they used to drink up all the ethanol that ran the torpedoes. They'd fire them. They'd go 10 feet and stop. And I'm looking at him. Drank whatever I got my hands on. If I had torpedo juice, I would have drank it. Well, he sends me to see a doctor. One of the few that knew something about this disease. The doctor sends me to AA. He says, go to AA. This old priest calls me up and he says, I'm taking you to a meeting.
Now, we go to a place called Succossana, New Jersey. You have to be sober to say that. It sounds like a bad word. And this priest tells me to meet him at a certain place, and he drives me to this meeting, and he loses me there on purpose. Because he knows priests are no good for priests. He gets rid of me. So there I am in this room, and I have to get a ride back to my car from one of you. And it was Joey W. who gave me a ride back to my car that night. And I'm sitting in this guy's car, and I'm saying, there's something else wrong with this guy than booze. Joey, great man. Do anything for an alcoholic when he's on. Joey's not sober today, and he's bouncing around out there, and it's really sad. And I hope that I hope he gets back to this, because when he's one of those people, when he's sober, he'll do anything for an alcoholic. And I go to my first meeting. That's November 2nd of 1973, and there I am, ready to hide under the table, afraid, confused. And you people loved me at my most unlovable point. Told me, don't pick up the first drink and you won't get drunk, keep coming back. I became very interested. Why? Because there was an acceptance there at AA. I kept coming back. In the beginning, I went to one meeting a week, whether I needed it or not. And the rest of the week, I discovered that all of a sudden there was uncontrollable emotional turmoil happening. I didn't know what to do. And I'm going to this one meeting a week, and they say, keep coming. They say, get yourself a sponsor. I don't know what a sponsor is. But I began to look at what was happening. I was able to make a retreat. We have a retreat house at our monastery, and 100 men were coming on retreat who are in the program. And it was 3 weeks after I was in AA. These guys come on retreat, and I tell them I'm in AA. Well, they walk me around for the weekend. The whole time they tell me, don't pick up the first drink, easy does it, get yourself a sponsor, go to meetings, and all this finally penetrated. And I began to do this. I began to go to meetings. I got myself a sponsor. I thought that was the biggest decision I ever made in my life. I thought this guy was sober forever. He's an iron worker. Iron workers are good for priests. And I asked him, would you be my sponsor? He was sober a year and a half. I thought he was sober forever. And he says, sure. We have established I still have the same sponsor. And we have the closest friendship, and after a while, the lines get fuzzy. We've been able to help each other out. Very, very powerful thing. Wonderful thing. I don't know. I don't know about switching sponsors or all this sending out, asking for your sponsor's resume before you... I don't know. I liked what this guy had. I admired his sobriety, and that's what I wanted. And we become friends, and he's able to deal with me. Then I began to go to meetings. And you heard it said, I became Mr. AA. I'm all over the place. I'm all over the place like horse crap. I'm at this meeting, I'm at that meeting, I'm everywhere. I'm making the coffee, I'm the chairman, I'm this, I'm giving retreats, and I'm all over the place. And this goes on year after year after year. And there's marvelous energy that comes from that. There's recovery by involvement. And then all of a sudden, I'm given this gift of sobriety, and I do what so many people do. I find out that there are other people, places, and things in life. And slowly, imperceptibly, I begin to drift away. Now, my sponsor points that out to me recently. He said, you used a good word. You began to drift. It's like a boat that's lost its mooring. It's imperceptible at first, but before you know it, you're out in deep water. I didn't drink. Began to drift away, began to get involved in all these kinds of things. I kept going to meetings. Our old group at Succossana fell apart because everybody in the group had begun to do that. Go to meetings, and we lost sense of a group. Now, I don't know about you, but sobriety for me is a group experience. It's something beyond my personal achievement or something that I can do by myself. It's a group experience. It's not a meeting experience. It's a group experience. I need people around that know me, that can understand, that can take one look at me and say, and deal with it. and have the courage to tell me, I can't get that if I go to this meeting and that meeting and this meeting. I need a group. I need a group that knows me intimately. I need a group that keeps me in touch with these steps, because I need to know your experience, your strengths and your hope, and what you're doing with the situations in your life so that I can apply that to the situations in my life. I need a group. I lost a group. I would go to meetings and drift away. And I think it was about 8 or 9 years in the program, I drifted away and didn't drink, kept going to meetings, but lost a group. My sobriety looked like it was without a group too. It's like, this is not a club. It's a fellowship. And I need the experience, strengths, and hope of people who have come before me and people who are coming in after me and people who have come in with me in this program, because they have something very important to give to me. I need the wisdom of those early timers, as they like to be called. They have a wealth of experience. I need to tune into what they're about. I need the people who are in here 3, 4, 5, and 6 years, because they're working this thing like there is no tomorrow. They're working this a day at a time, and that's what I need. I need to see that and remind me of the time when I went through these steps with that enthusiasm of the first time. And I need the people that are just walking in, because I got to keep my memory green. My sponsor told me the older this disease gets, the smarter it gets. It's subtle. Very, very subtle. We were very fortunate. Very fortunate. A group of us from our old group had gotten together a couple of years ago, and we were celebrating someone's anniversary, and we sat in a circle and said, so where are you now? And we said, what kind of sobriety is this without a group? We formed a group. I have to tell you that that's my strength, and my hope is that group, because I need to live out of a group in this fellowship. It's the only way I can do it. Why? Because that door of shame opens up again. You know what it says now? It doesn't remind me of all those stupid things and all those things I did when I was the mad monk on the loose with booze. You know what it says now? And this is the door of shame. It says, stay home tonight. You don't need to go to a meeting today. You know how to do this. Watch television. And that's the opening of the door of shame, because it's all waiting to come right back. We have a fancy word, we call it isolation. That's the experience of shame. Leave me alone. That's the shame of this powerful, powerful thing. I've heard people come in their first meeting, I was like, I can't say the word alcoholic. It's got him by the throat. Shame has got him by the throat. We live with that in a wonderful way in our fellowship. We're able to handle anything because our steps deal directly with guilt. Don't do the things that make you feel guilty and you won't feel guilt anymore. There's a whole list of them there about what to do with guilt. It's shame that's the problem. I need a fellowship to deal with the shame of my alcoholism. I need a group of people that can understand me. And it's not a contest, can you top this? It's a group of people that will love each other and reflect the acceptance of a caring and compassionate God like I've seen nowhere else. You may know that sometimes people get in this and get on a religious bandwagon. All of a sudden they join AA, they join the church, they join PTA, they join, and then where do they go? You don't get the kind of fellowship, I don't get the kind of fellowship that I need at covered dish suppers. For some of us, the only thing that might ever look like a church in our life is a room like this and people like this, and it's all right. It's perfectly all right for some of us. Others of us will go back and discover in a new way and revalidate the religion that we were brought up in. And my problem is, I may not have left the church, but I left it up here when alcohol became my God, and I'm left with the emotions of a teenager and with the religion of a teenager, and all of a sudden I'm in the program and I'm discovering that there are adult problems. And I had to bridge that gap, and it takes a long, long time. Can't do it right away. Some of us get back or make a decision about joining a church, or we don't have to. Sometimes this is the only thing, and it's all right if that's the way it's going to be. God, religion would love to have what we have. Package it, promote it. We have something here that I wouldn't give up. You see, there's a look in sobriety, just like there's a look that comes in alcoholism. The eyes are the windows of the soul. There's a look in sobriety, people's faces. I've seen God's face 1,000 times. And and again and again in this program. I know God's around. The only time I can see good come out of which appears as evil, I know I see the face of God. I love to come to Nebraska because I know what the sky looks like when I come to Nebraska. I'm one of those people, though, that can't find God he's okay, it's nice in nature, sunsets, it's all beautiful. But for me, God has got to appear in the face of another alcoholic for me to see him clearly and to keep me alive. And that's what I have found in this fellowship. I am absolutely fascinated by that. Again and again and again, God appears in our rooms, in our faces, in our lives. I need that. I need that to keep me believing, to keep me growing. Because it's so easy to forget and to turn numb. There are all kinds of experiences that happen in sobriety. Family members die, friends die, and these are very, very sad. I almost died once. And we learn how to live with it. My sponsor says, you can survive anything if you live through it. You've got to be an alcoholic to understand these things, I guess. But he's got a whole collection of these. And I'm like, yeah, you can survive anything if you live through it. I've been given back things that I don't deserve. And my sponsor told me too, he says, if you had to pay back everything you ever did to anybody, you wouldn't be here. It'd be a long, long time. A lot of us have problems with that issue of shame and guilt and coming to terms with it. And I deeply believe that God does not care about my past or your past. He's not making a list and checking it twice and going to find out who's naughty and nice. I mean, that's a childish notion. And and I'm stuck with that because that's something that I bring from my childhood and try to face in my adult life. God don't care about the past. I've learned in this program that God is the future. It's hope. God is hope. God is the future. God is love, and that's the present. And that's what this is about. And there I am stuck with all these things of my past. I've got to deal with that past. I've got to remember that past. I've got to put that past peacefully aside and deal with it so that I can grow. My unfavorite step is the ninth one. I've had several opportunities to deal with it recently, in recent years. And they come up. I try as I may, I can't decide when I'm going to do that. The opportunities arise. They arise. One of the most beautiful ones was at my father's funeral. I was in the same church with the same people that I had been at my first Mass. My father had just died from cancer, that long and slow, horrible process where it spreads all through. I was able to do what I was supposed to, and that's what this program has given me. But the gift was to be in the church with the same people and the same friends that were at my first Mass, and to know that I'm doing this right. And I knew it at the time. My God, that was a powerful amend. Doesn't mean going around, I'm sorry. I said that long enough. Amends are going to have to come out in some other way for me, and it's doing things right. There's a powerful experience in that. I was flooded with a feeling of joy that comes from doing things right. I had another one recently. I was out at a graduate school that I had gone to for many years. I had the privilege of bringing some students from Africa over and scheming them to get scholarships at school. We have to use our abilities in a positive way after we come in this program. I got them scholarships. It was great. A powerful and beautiful and wonderful experience, and the community there is happy to do it. So I'm bringing them out there, and all of a sudden I'm back at school where I went to school for all those years, and I see some of the people that I had directly harmed in my blackouts, and I said, oh, brother, I didn't make amends for them. I had to do it for me. I had to go up and, you know why? Because I have to look at myself in the mirror the next morning. And to try to live this thing means to deal with what comes up. And I don't find that easy. I don't find it necessarily doing things my way and telling myself that's getting spiritual because I feel good. I think that sometimes getting spiritual means dealing with a lot of stuff that we don't want to, that's contained in our path of life. We're using this word so often today, spirituality. It's become a cottage industry and a substitute, I think, sometimes for pop psychology and what I can get away with. Oh, I feel good, it must be spiritual. That's psychology. I think we have perhaps the only integrated spiritual approach, a system of values, a set of things that works to integrate people's lives anywhere. This works. We have a spiritual approach in our 12 steps, and it doesn't necessarily tell me that I'm going to feel good as I'm doing them. But it works. Everybody I've met that has seriously tried to do this thing has told me that it works and they've never harmed me. The winners. That's why it says stick with the winners. Now, there are losers around. There are AA crybabies and whiners and people that are preaching or whatever. I have to find the winners. They're quiet people. Sometimes they're very enthusiastic and they make a lot of surface noise, but their lives are quiet. There's a calm and a serenity about that I need. I need winners in my life. I need to know them. I need to stick with them. It works. There are so many gifts. 9 years ago, the community of monks that I live with elected me their abbot. The guy they were going to throw out, now they put in charge of the institution. That completely proves to me that God has a sense of humor. I have a problem with authority. A lot of alcoholics I know have problems with authority. So God says, well, make that bird the authority and see how he deals with that. And it's been a good experience, though. I've been able to do some things. There's our retreat house, when I first came in the program, had 3 retreats a year for people in AA. One in December, one in June, and one in April. We now have 38. And there's a procession each year of about 4,000 people that come through our retreat house. And that keeps showing me the face of God. A powerful and wonderful and enriching thing. And that didn't happen by itself, and it's not a coincidence. And I'm privileged to be on the staff of that, and to just be around sometimes when these people are coming to grow in their sobriety. I've been able to travel since coming in the program. I never went anywhere drunk. I've been a lot of places. 2 weeks, I'm going back to one of my favorite places in East Africa. Hopefully, we'll be able to do something with setting up a group. That would be really nice. Recently, I was in South Africa, and it was one of the most beautiful things to see people from all the different groups together at an AA meeting. I had been there previously 2 years, and we 12-step a man who came from one of the slums and was living in an environment that was absolutely horrendous. And of course, I judged him. I said, this guy's never going to make it. 2 years later to the day I was back there, and the people that were taking me to the meeting said, we're going to celebrate an anniversary birthday tonight. I said, oh, that's nice. And who is it? It's that man who 2 years previously was brought in this program and given this gift by the grace of God. And who am I to judge? Unbelievable experiences. All I have to do is look for them. It's been good being here. I want to thank, in conclusion, I want to thank the people that organize these things and have put their time and effort into making this weekend an experience of growth and sobriety for me. This just doesn't happen. There's an unbelievable amount of organization and planning that these people have done to set this up for us. And I think that that's a very, very powerful and wonderful example of service. Keep your enthusiasm, keep growing, and keep bringing new people and young people in your fellowship, in your program. I need that. I need to see this joy of sobriety that you have here, and I'd like to wish you all another happy 24.